Hi, I'm Dr. William Teely, and this is our video series created for the pandemic in times like these. We've had 2 episodes already and have begun a series of exploring contemplative, compassionate service for times like these. And so today's episode 3, is shifting from the focus on contemplation to the focus on how contemplation helps to cultivate our compassion. Daily contemplative practice becomes daily sourcing in compassion, like a newborn drinking in the nourishment we need. Contemplation fills us with the sustenance we need for both our personal lives and for compassionate service. And then compassion flows freely into our beings when we keep returning to the source each day. Compassion is like the inward presence of the divine essence, pouring itself into us to fill us up to overflowing. Compassion wants to make a home in us, and it is happiest when it also radiates out from us to others. Compassion is not afraid of the world's suffering, for at its source, it is larger than all suffering, and yet present in, around, and through all suffering. We personally can become overwhelmed, obviously, by the needs of the suffering world, especially when we feel we are separate from the source of great love. So, when faced with great suffering in times like these, we always need to spend time with great love. Remember this: when you are exposed to big suffering, you must turn to big love. We often end our formal times set aside for contemplation in our School for Contemplative Living with the sound of a singing bowl or gong or bell. And so listen to this for just a moment to get a sense of that shift from the focusing inward, that inner presence, to the cultivation in our hearts of compassion. And preparing for a million small acts of kindness in these days. Compassion moves us from feelings like empathy distress, or fatigue, or empathy overwhelm, into the wish and willingness to help relieve suffering. As we move from our complacency into action, we experience what Dr. Kelly McGonigal has called the warm glow of oxytocin arising within us. We come to know our own efficacy as caregivers, and then uniting with the divine flow, contemplative, compassionate service moves through us and out into the world of great need. I know this sounds simple. It is my direct experience over decades now that first comes contemplative practice that fills us by being in contact with the source of compassion. As the compassion naturally arises in us, then it begins to move us out toward acts of service, a kind of sacred activism. For now, let's do the cultivation of compassion step. So close your eyes, if you will, and picture someone for whom you easily feel acceptance and caring concern, compassion, just love. And let your feelings of tenderness and affection for this person arise naturally. And then you might remember a time when your friend or loved one was experiencing stress or some form of suffering. And feel your own wish, your willingness to help them with their suffering. Then, imagine some form of compassionate image that represents the natural flow of love and compassion. A person, someone you know, or someone you just know of, some aspect of nature, like the way the sun falls on us no matter what's happening, no matter whether we think we're worthy or not. So just taking a moment there to picture who for you is an image of real compassion. And then, as you breathe in, imagine that your compassionate image is sending love and light into your own heart on the in-breath. And as you breathe out, send that same love and compassion right toward the heart of the one you care for. Breathing the compassion in from your own compassionate image, and then directing it out on the out-breath towards that one you care for. Let's practice like that for just a moment. Breathing love and compassion in and out from a source of compassion into us and toward the one for whom we care. As you notice the breathing out part of sending the compassion, picture the person for whom you care receiving that compassion right now, experiencing the feeling of that compassion and the beginning of relief of their suffering. Rejoice in that experience of their relief. Like really seeing that soothing of their suffering in your own heart and mind. And then to express your direct experience of that desire to relieve their suffering and your own willingness to help relieve their suffering. Just silently say, "May you be happy. May you be free of your suffering. May you know peace and joy." This is one example of how we engage in contemplative, compassionate service. We go to the source of compassion within us. We begin to cultivate that compassion for those for whom we care, and in time begin to direct that same compassion to others, perhaps strangers, people we barely know, ultimately to even people for whom we've had difficulty, and finally toward all beings. If you're interested in learning more about this particular step in the process, you're welcome to explore the website for Compassion Institute. There you can learn about classes that you could take online even during this time of pandemic and continue to cultivate your own compassion through these sources of help. In time, as we begin to gather in person more frequently, we'll be offering these same compassion cultivation training classes again right here in our home base of the School for Contemplative Living in New Orleans, Louisiana. Today, may you be well.